Hello everyone, welcome to Formula Online Racing for round 13 of the PlayStation 4 F1 Championship around the historic Spa-Francorchamps circuit. I am Luke Etheridge and we are currently 1/4 of the way through the first qualifying session around a very overcast Spa circuit here in the Ardennes Mountains. 4.35 miles, just over 7 kilometres long, and as happened in the F2, wouldn't be too surprising if the weather plays a part tonight. It definitely did last week, where we saw this man, Ferhan Racer, take victory on his debut. He was reserving in the Toro Rosso that time out, but he's now got a full-time seat in the Mercedes, replacing Double O. We've got a couple of other drivers making their debut tonight. Deso F1, he is now full-time in the Racing Point, replacing Yossi Heinze. We've also got VRT Loney subbing in for Irish Nude Potato this evening. It's a very challenging circuit, and we're going to allow Hibilu to take us on board for a lap of this circuit, just coming out of the bus stop chicane. Important to get a good exit there for the DRS zone down the very short pit straight here into La Source. Tight first corner. We've seen many crashes over the years. Fernando Alonso involved in two big ones in 2012 and 2018. Heading downhill on the old start straight, as we are seeing rain starting to fall here in Q1. That's not what you want as you're coming through Eau Rouge and Raidillon on slick tyres. DRS open once again for the Kemmel Straight, seen in the famous Schumacher-Hakkinen overtake in 2000. Braking hard now for the Lecombe chicane. Got to keep it nice and smooth through this part of the circuit. Very easy to lose time, especially on the exit of the corner. If you put a wheel on the grass or the gravel, downhill braking zone into Bruxelles makes it very easy to lock a wheel and go too deep into that corner. Turn 8 and 9 don't have a name as we head now downhill once again. Elevation a big part of this circuit into Pouhon. This is flat out in the dry. It's not going to be the case now that the track is getting a bit more damp around here. Keeping it nice and steady as he came through Pouhon into the next corner, the chicane at 12 and 13. See the car just beginning to run a bit wide there. I think this rain could really ruin Hibilu's chances of getting a lap time and some of the others. DRS there, you can see disabled into Stavelot. Chunks of understeer there on the Toro Rosso. Coming out of Stavelot through Paul Frere. Watch out for that barrier that just juts out on the left hand side. Very easy to smash the car into the wall there. Now coming through Blanchimont. Be extremely brave to see any overtakes here through the race, but it has definitely happened, and Hibilu just about keeping it out of the wall there. That invalidated his lap, and that could well be it for his qualifying session and for this qualifying session in general. Most of the drivers setting a time early on. It's Thomas, Westy and Josh who have been fantastic since they have joined the league. Thomas actually though crashed out last week when Ferhan took the victory. What that did for the championship standings is it allowed Paulie Orange, he finished in 4th place. Westy finished 5th, as you can just see. Artiero having no grip there, not even making it into their pit lane. So as we're saying, Paulie Orange got points. Artiero's been disqualified for blocking the pit lane, so he'll be starting from the back. Paulie Orange 119, Westy 108, Josh now on 92 points, Pivusha on 90, Droftas 83, Aylan 69 and Denge 61. He was delighted with his podium. Jonathan Cox 55, Lawrence 52 and Thomas on 50 points from his 2 wins, rounding out the top 10 in the championship. We're still yet to see anyone take 3 victories in this championship. Paulie Orange has 2, Westy has 2, Thomas has 2. Josh, despite being on the podium every race he's been in, still only has 1 victory. He's got a great chance tonight. He's made it through the first qualifying session because we're not going to see any improvements now. Aylan, 14th place. You can just see how much he is struggling. YBR's trying to set a fast lap as well. In fact, I think he's lost his front wing. He's run out of fuel as well. He's just trying to get back to the pits. So I think we could see a few more drivers maybe retire in this qualifying session, because unless it stops raining right now, they've got no chance of improving, and it is going to be YBR, Lawrence, Pedro and Artiero who are heading out, judging by the timings at the moment. Hibilu and Pedro are going for outlaps on the intermediate tyres. Very easy in these conditions to wipe your car out, and then you won't be able to take any further part in qualifying. We saw that happen to Westy Thomas and Jonathan Cox in qualifying last week. Thomas setting a time that would have been good enough to get him through to Q3, but he had to start from 10th after smashing his car up around the Hungaroring. Mixed conditions there, and we've definitely got mixed conditions in this qualifying, and Thomas getting the job done early with a 142.916. Westy, Josh Fairham, we know how good these guys are. Deso putting in a decent performance in his first session, likewise with Loney slotting in just behind his championship leader teammate Paulie Orange at the moment. And you can just see, even from Hibilu's previous lap, he's about 30 mile an hour slower through the apex of the first part of Pujon. Just about learning the track. This could be useful if we get wet conditions in the race. It might be good to try and experience what the track is like in the wet, but really having to tiptoe around at the moment and not got any realistic chance of improving in this session. Let's talk about a few of the drivers that were looking good for the championship. We have got 9 races to go, and it is still incredibly close, of course. Pedro in the Renault, he's going to help the Renault team, I think, to the constructors. You may have heard in the podcast, Renault are my tip for the Constructors' Championship. Now, they have gone top of the standings on 169 points. Haas, just 2 points behind, got their first double point score since Spain, with Paulie Orange and Irish Stewed Potato finishing in the top 10 last time out. Red Bull on 150 points. Williams and McLaren not too far back either. Any of those teams could take the lead of the Constructors tonight. It is oh so close in that championship. But Josh and Pedro definitely look very consistent with their pace, finishing first and third in qualifying last time out. Pedro having a bad start, spinning in the race, recovered to finish in 6th, but he's going to have it all to do starting down in 18th. Although I can see why Hibilu, YBR and Pedro are setting lap times, because there is still only 14 drivers that have set a lap time here, so whoever's going to be fastest out of these guys is going to be 15th and get themselves through to the next qualifying session. So Pedro's invalidated his lap. Hibilu likewise. Might just be whoever can manage to get one clean lap in here and keep it on the circuit is going to qualify for the second part of qualifying and get themselves into a better chance of a better qualifying. Hibilu and YBR, you probably wouldn't expect to be near the sharp end of the grid, but judging by last week, you would with Pedro, so we'll have to see what he can do. Even with this lap being invalidated, you can just see the times that are being set. 159.522. No need then for Loney or Aylan, the only drivers who haven't retired, to get worried. This track nowhere near dry enough for those times to be challenged. But Pedro, let's see what he can do. Coming up through our route, we've got yellow flags in sector 1. I think that was just Loney pulling out on his outlap. Not quite sure why the Haas has gone out. He could easily just lose it like that. And if he hit the wall, that would be his qualifying over. So I'm not sure this is the wisest decision from Loney to be heading out on circuit. So Hibilu managed 2 minutes, but they'd both invalidated their lap. YBR's not too far behind Pedro. I think it is just going to be whoever gets a clean lap out of these guys is going to qualify for the next part. 15 minutes qualifying next, and then the top 10 having to go through onto the final one. If it is dry, top 10 will have to use the tyres that they use in Q2 to set their best lap time for the start of the race, and that can lead to a few interesting strategies. Quite high tyre wear around this circuit. That is why Pirelli bring their 3 hardest tyres, C3, C2 and C1 being the soft, mediums and hards respectively. And it is this middle sector where downforce is key, even more so in these tricky conditions. First and final sectors, all about top speed, no real difficult corners. Blanchimont and Eau Rouge Radion being flat out in the dry. But that middle sector, very twisty, all about downforce. So some of those lower down the field who might feel like they're going to be needing to do more overtaking might just trim off a bit of downforce to give them the best chance of overtaking using the DRS zones into La Source and Lecombe. Pedro's kept it nice and clean so far. What's the Renault going to do? It's going to be a 1:56.282. Can YBR beat that time? No, he cannot. So unless he can find an improvement, he is going to be going out. Hibilu looking very steady at the moment. His previous lap, which was invalidated, was 2 minutes. So we'll see if he can challenge Pedro, but it looks as though the Renault is just going to sneak into the second part of qualifying. 3 minutes 20 remaining. They have got a bit more time. Hibilu running out of ERS energy, and you can just hear the engine struggling to pull that Toro Rosso down the back straight. And I feel this is going to be only enough to keep him in 17th for now. Yeah, and it's a 158.6. YBR not improving. Pedro, he's invalidated. Hopefully for his sake, he's got enough fuel in to get another lap done. YBR needs to find a second. A lot easier to find that in the wet conditions. Hibilu has retired, so he's had enough. Just these two drivers now out in this qualifying session. That is the important thing. It's going to be horrible for Q2 as well. Apparently the weather conditions could be very tricky, so don't be surprised if we see full wets coming out there. Could see a very mixed up grid here in Belgium. First on the calendar in 1950, shortened form appeared in the 80s with the Belgian Grand Prix going to Nivelles and Zolder as the old Spa circuit was deemed unsafe by modern Formula 1 standards. Main changes that have happened since then: the bus stop getting reprofiled at the end of 2004 just to make it an easier overtaking zone. Let's see what YBR can do. He's actually invalidated his lap as well. But they are both going to get one last shot to try and get through to the next part of qualifying. In fact, no, they're not. YBR's heading into the pits. Might be worth Pedro just heading in as well. No, he's staying out on circuit, but he's through to the next part of qualifying. So it's going to be YBR, Hibilu, and he has realised now, YBR, Hibilu, Lawrence and Artiero, who got disqualified, have been knocked out of qualifying. Pedro just sneaking through there as the announcer gives us a very nice message that this was designated for the European Grand Prix back in 1925, if you want an idea about how long the history of this circuit has been around. So YBR, Hibilu, Lawrence and Artiero out in the first part of qualifying. YBR and Hibilu really getting caught out by the weather. It's Thomas, Westy, Josh, Ferhan and Borussia were the top 5 in that session. Thomas yet to qualify higher than 10th place, and that was last week. His 2 victories came from much further down the back of the grid after missing qualifying at Silverstone and then being banned from the 2nd and 3rd qualifying at Hockenheim for driving infringements at that Silverstone race. He'll be looking good to do well in qualifying if he can maintain that in the next part of qualifying. Fastest by 3/10 over Westy. It was very close between Westy and Josh for 2nd position. Some of the debutants, they'll be happy with their performance. Dezo in 6th. Good performance for the Racing Point team, who really need it ever since that great qualifying that they had at Monaco with Jonathan Cox and Jossi Heinze. Things just really gone downhill. Jossi Heinze, his only points in the races that he was in this league came at that race, 16th being his only finish apart from that, and Jonathan Cox hasn't scored points in the last 3 races, but it's looking good for the Racing Point team tonight. But there you can see the top of the order: Thomas, Westy and Josh. Last week's pole sitter was 4th, Berhan, in that session, and indeed YBR, Hibilu, Lawrence and Artiero will have it all to do in the race. But if the weather looking as bad as it is at the moment in Spa, you never know, we might see a few surprises. Yeah, Pedro making it through there by 1 second. Most of the drivers do incredibly well to keep it out of the wall once that rain started coming down. I think Hibilu might be kicking himself. He's not too happy with the rain. It is actually going to be a dry race, so there will be a more conventional chance, and I think they're going to be glad, because if what I'm hearing is true, this qualifying session, Q2, is going to be absolutely abysmal weather here. It's going to be intermediates, possibly even full wet tyres towards the end of the session. If it stays like this, it's going to be just about surviving. With it being a dry race, that won't mean everyone will get fresh tyres, so that advantage that you usually get for starting 11th will not be the case. Praga does have a Q3 ban, so he'll be starting 10th, the best he'll be able to do. He might as well just go for it though if he's not going to be using these intermediate tyres in the race, and try and ensure that he does start from that 10th position, and that is for a late notice of absence last week around. Not that it did for Toro Rosso team any harm, with Ferhan taking that victory, and that took them off the foot of the Constructors' Championship table, moving them up into 7th position. It is incredibly close between all the teams. I said any one of 5 teams could be at the top. There's only 80 points separating Renault in first, and Mercedes, Ferrari and Alfa Romeo, who are tied on points at the bottom of the order. With Droftas's consistency and Ferhan's pace that we've seen, Lawrence being out as the sole Ferrari is going to make it hard for Ferrari to move up, but we know Andenge is quality, and Artiero as well. Artiero, he just cleaned up those penalties. He got a lot last time around. He's already been disqualified in this. He would be a top class driver, and Andenge, you heard in the interviews last week, absolutely delighted with that 3rd place, managing to keep those medium tyres in extremely good shape in Hungary. That allowed him to take a podium, his 2nd of the season, 1st podium since he finished 2nd at the Monaco circuit. So Andenge seems to enjoy those tight, twisty circuits, and this pretty much the antithesis of those. I think I just saw Jonathan Cox getting very lively out of Lake Home. And the first man around in this session is going to be Ferhan. Pole sitter last time around. He'll be taking it a lot easier, I think, than he was last week. Just all about getting a good run. Unfortunately for him, those 25 points that he got for the victory didn't count, and that would have already put him up in 11th place in this championship. Still, anyone's guess who is going to take the victory. Paulie Orange being in the lead, only on 119 points. He's not necessarily been the fastest over the last few weeks, and I think he'll quite willingly admit that. But he has shown great consistency as all these drivers bunching up out on circuit. That suggests to me the rain is definitely forecast to get a bit heavier, so this could be a copy of Q1, where it was all about just keeping it nice and dry. Only Paulie Orange was actually just headed back into the pit, so not sure whether he got any damage. There was a lot of cars close together, but he's decided to head back into the pits, and if it does rain harder, he won't want to be out there for too long. So Ferhan, 32.2 in the first sector. We'll see how that compares to some of these behind him. And Andenge, 2nd slower than that at the moment. Of course, if it is going to be dry in the race, they are going to have more dry setups on, so a bit less downforce. So this 2nd sector is really going to be a struggle in these damp, tricky conditions. I must say though, the intermediate tyres are extremely good in wet conditions. Pretty much anything less than a monsoon, they will last, as Droftas has spun at the top of the hill out of Radion. No damage done, thankfully for him, because that very easily could have been race over, well, qualifying over, I should say, as Alan has binned it at the top of Eau Rouge. He is out of this qualifying session. Pedro just missing him. We'll keep an eye on, I think it's Paulie Orange who's on his outlap at the moment, so we'll see whether we can see whereabouts he has done it. Paulie Orange obviously will take it steady through Eau Rouge, and you should just see a McLaren buried in the tyre wall there. So Alan will not be taking any further part in this qualifying session, and it looks like 15th will be his most likely position. Jonathan Cox headed back into the pits as well. We'll see what time Ferhan can do. 1:57.117, so that's about 15 seconds slower than what we were seeing some of the others doing. Got a yellow flag again. I think that's Jonathan Cox who's spun at the top of the hill. Loney goes into 2nd place, instantly bumped down by Westy as Thomas 4/10 faster again than everyone. He is looking very good at the moment. Smashed straight away though by Josh. 1:56.168. You need that confidence in these conditions. Praga in 8th position. We see Desso moving up into 5th, just behind Westy. Dynastic's not too far off either. Incredibly close between 4th and 6th position. Droftas will set a time unless he heads into the pits. This will put him 11th after that mistake that he made. Pedro, what can he do in the Renault? His teammate has gone fastest, and it looked for a lot of the qualifying session last week that Renault would get a 1-2. And at the moment, that is 4th position, 1.5 seconds behind his teammate. But a reminder, this session all about finishing in the top 10 and getting through to Q3. You don't want to be making mistakes like Alan in these early stages and putting yourselves out of contention. A few of these drivers, I think, now just backing up, heading back towards the pit lane. As we see Desso getting a bit sideways there. Just joined this league as a replacement for Jossi Heinze. And debutants do have a good reputation here in FOR. We've seen Paulie Orange win on debut, Westy win on debut. Josh won out on track, but penalties dropped him down to 3rd position. And Thomas as well winning on debut. Furhan last week. Could Desso or Loney join that? And let's not forget Pedro last week getting a pole position on debut, as it looks like it's almost raining sideways there on that camera angle. The rain really coming down now around this circuit. Yellow flag in sector 3 as Ferran nearly bins it into the pit lane wall. I feel like that was a very late decision to come into the pits there. Thomas rushing to get his car back into the pits. So I think everyone pretty much doing their first run. Westy looks as though he wants to head out again. See what sort of time Droftas is setting. Unsurprisingly, much quicker than his previous best. But I feel like this rain's just coming down a bit harder. So it might be hard for him to improve his position, at least. He needs to find 18 seconds to get ahead of Andenge. But let's see what the Mercedes can do. Hasn't had a podium since 3rd at Monaco, but he's always consistent and most of the time tends to be in and around the points. And now he's diving into the pits this time around. Might get a good view on what the track conditions are like from Paulie Orange though. His first out lap, where can he put his car? Championship leader, he'll really be looking to get into the next qualifying session. Extended his lead last time around with some of his rivals having big issues in qualifying. Borussia not scoring any points. Westy having to come from the back of the grid to finish in 5th. Droftas in the end not scoring any points. So a lot of his rivals faltered last week. And where can Paulie Orange put the Haas in this second qualifying session? It's only going to be good enough for 12th place. Needs to find a second to move himself up. And with the weather deteriorating, that is going to be oh so tricky. As he misses the apex at La Source. May just be taking that wider karting line. You do try and find a bit more grip. The racing line can be extremely slippery because of all the rubber that is put down. There's a nice little drift from Paulie Orange. Not quite as dramatic as the one Sergio Perez did. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago now where he was completely sideways in the Force India. Somehow managed to avoid stacking it in the wall in what would have been a huge collision. Paulie Orange doing likewise there. Similar to his previous best, but really needs to find an improvement. And with a few cars suggesting that man going onto the wet tyres, Droftas is heading out of the pits on those wets. And that suggests to me that could well be qualifying over for a lot of these guys if it is getting wet enough for the full wet tyres. Because they're not going to see any improvements. Only 6 minutes to go. And it's Josh and Thomas at the top this time around. Thomas there, you can see retiring from the session, and yellow flagged out is that Pedro was lost it coming through Stavolo. See if there's any damage on his Renault. Not quite sure why these many guys are risking it in these conditions. If you're already through to the top 10, you're probably going to be safe. A lot are retiring now. If drivers coming in to wet tyres, it's definitely good for us. It keeps the show going. There's some nice drifting into the pit lane. There, a very narrow, slow pit lane here, so you need to be careful. I've seen a few cars get caught out as they've been trying to head into the pit lane in this qualifying session and in real life. They don't want to lose it in qualifying. Otherwise, you will find yourself out. Even if you've gone fast enough to get through to the next session, you will not be allowed to take part. And Denge has gone out on the intermediate tyres. Everyone else who is out at the moment, Borussia, Droftas and Jonathan Cox on the wet. So we'll have a look what Andenge can do. We'll see his first sector. Currently 11th. He's got nothing to lose really. Got to go for it to try and improve. He was on the podium last week and was delighted with that. see if he can put similar heroics this time around, and I think he's going to have to use some of them Scandinavian rallying skills that he's got in his veins to just try and keep things nice and tidy in this session at the moment. Just hear how slow he is through Eau Rouge and Radion compared to what would be a normal time. See, he's actually half a second up in the first sector, so there's still grip out there if you can find it. Just whether the rest of the track is in good enough condition, we'll have to wait and see. So he's managed to find an improvement on these intermediate tyres, and that's what I was saying a few minutes ago. They are very good in the wet conditions. You don't necessarily need the full wets on unless it is really bucketing down, pretty much monsoon conditions. Otherwise the intermediates can be just as quick. It's that the wet tyres do give you a bit more confidence and stability, especially if you run off the racing line. The Borussia headed into the pits. Paulie Orange is heading out as well on the wet tyres. Be surprised if he manages to find any improvements on them. Same with Drofdas and Jonathan Cox as well. Sector 2 for Andenge, his time coming up now. He's still improved, but he's dropped a tiny bit in that sector. They're going to require some extreme bravery from the Alfa Romeo driver. Otherwise, they could both be going out in before Q3 this time around. Coming through Blanchimont, Newsdale is ERS. That's really going to compromise you. Heading into the bus stop, runs deep. Just about makes the apex of the final bit, but he's not going to be as straight as he needs to be to put all the power down from that Ferrari engine. And Andenge does improve his time, but not his position, crucially. Still only in 11th position. What can Drofdas do? 2:17, that lap where we saw him spin at the top of the hill at Radion. Still his best time. I think this is why those like Dynastics, as I say, that Dynastics retires, Loney, Borussia and Praga are just waiting to see what kind of times these guys do, because they may not necessarily be safe yet. Drofdas heading around the final corner now. The Mercedes driver coming towards the finish line, 1:59.986. Stays in 13th position for now. Jonathan Cox taking a few bites at the steering wheel to get that racing point towards the apex, and he will only move up ahead of Alan into 14th. So I think that could well be qualifying over for these guys now. Paulie Orange heading on to a fast lap. Loney on one as well on intermediate tyres. If he stacks it in the wall like Alan did earlier, that'll be qualifying over for these guys as well. So they've got to take it very gently. As I say that, yeah, Loney's retired from the session. Loney has crashed out, and I was saying it's very easy to do that and you could find yourself in trouble. Paulie Orange in the other hat as well, going for a spin, so Loney will not be taking any further part in this qualifying. He just headed out to see if he can improve his time. Almost certainly would have been safe anyway, and a potential great debut qualifying. He's been taken away from himself there. He will be taking no further part and starting in 10th position. Disaster for the Vortex Racing Team driver. And then on the run down now to the bus stop, way off his fastest time. I think this could be diving into the pit lane and retirement. Paulie Orange with that spin, obviously nowhere near his fastest. Drofdas, Jonathan Cox not able to improve. Praga and Borussia want to be careful they don't make the same mistake Loney did. Might be worth them just heading into the pits. We've already seen one guy in the top 10 ruin any chance of getting through to Q3 as Borussia misjudging La Source there completely. Thought the car was going to understeer a bit wider, didn't do so. Now he's lost part of his front wing. There's one corner I think in Formula 1 I don't want to have part of my front wing missing. It will be Eau Rouge. Well, perhaps that bit of understeer that he's getting from that just helping keeping the car a bit more stable this time around. Qualifying is nearly over now. Still got Paulie Orange, Jonathan Cox on track, trying to get themselves out of the top 10. Borussia and Praga trying to ensure that they stay in the top 10 as the checkered flag comes out here in the second qualifying session. Josh Thomas Fairham, the top 3. And Praga, he has that Q3 band, so 9th will be the best he's able to do, but if he crashes out, he will move behind Loney, of course. Paulie Orange has headed into the pit lane. No improvements from Praga or Borussia. So maybe worth these guys taking it a bit safe now for the rest of the lap. They will be through. Jonathan Cox, he's also heading into the pit, so he'll be starting in 14th, struggling to regain the form we saw earlier from the season, both in F1 and F2. But in that session, it was Josh who has gone fastest. Thomas second, Ferhan in third, Pedro fourth, Westy fifth, Deso sixth, Dynastic seventh, Borussia eighth, Praga, the man we are on board with at the moment, who did do a very respectable first sector, I must say. Only a 10th off his personal best, so maybe there was a bit of lap time for some of these guys to find. We'll never quite know. See Praga now, what kind of time can he do in the middle sector? He's actually gone purple, so yeah, the rain's dying off slightly. If only Andenge, some of these others had managed to keep their tyres in good condition, maybe stayed on the intermediates, they might have been able to improve here. The big name that's out, obviously being Paulie Orange, championship leader. This is a great chance now for Westy to take the lead of the championship. Only 11 points between them, but we've seen that Paulie Orange come from further back. There's Praga now, he's heading towards the line, deciding not to go for the pits. And there you go, does move ahead of Borussia. So the track was getting better there, was good enough to improve. It was too late though for Andenge, Paulie Orange, Drofdash, Jonathan Cox and Alan. They'll be starting outside the top 10, and Loney will only be starting in 10th after his accident. But in that session, it was Josh and Thomas fastest again, but this time with the Renault driver taking P1. We could just see the confirmation of the order and those that are out. Loney will only be starting in 10th on his debut here. Andenge in 11th. Paulie Orange championship leader 12th. Drofdas 13th. Jonathan Cox 14th. Alan 15th. We'll see Praga not take part in the next session with his qualifying ban. So there's going to be 8 cars competing in Q3. Will Josh be able to take his 3rd pole position in 4 races? Will we see someone else get a pole? Wesley's yet to have a pole position. Thomas as well. Maybe Deso on debut. Can Pedro make it 2 in a row? We've got 12 minutes of qualifying 3 coming right up. I think the drivers will be hoping that the weather is better. We can see they're still sprinkling with rain here, but nowhere near as heavy as it was at the start of the last qualifying session. So no doubt which tyres everyone will be putting on. It will be the green striped intermediates, and if it gets a bit lighter towards the end, we may even see someone risk it on the slicks. Still raining at the moment with only 12 minutes. It's going to need to stop raining pretty soon. We do see one of the Renaults heading out. It's Josh, was second in the first qualifying, fastest in that one. Whether that means he has got a bit more of a wet weather setup, as the fastest times in Q1 were set in the dry, we'll have to wait and see. What this could be a great chance for him to take his 3rd pole position out of the last 4 races. Yet to convert a pole position to a victory, it must be said. Taking the win in Austria, of course, which was a fantastic win for him. But really has had a bit of a struggle in some of the races and qualifying. He admits himself on the podcast and in the interviews afterwards, he's been making mistakes in qualifying. Feels like he could have been on pole last time out. In the end, only starting in 3rd, and that is what arguably cost him the victory. Hungaroring, an extremely difficult track to overtake on. Could get past his teammate Pedro at the start after Pedro got a bit of a disastrous start from pole position, but found himself stuck behind Ferhan in the first stint. And then, to be honest, found himself out-strategized by Ferhan in the second stint. Ferhan put on those medium tyres, just was allowed to pull away from Josh ever so slightly. And then once he'd put the intermediate tyres on, really didn't have an answer for Ferhan. Couldn't get close enough. Still managed to get on the podium though. 5 podiums for him so far. 1 win, 2 seconds and 2 thirds. 27 points off the championship leader, Paulie Orange. 16 points off of Westy. He'll be aiming to close both those gaps significantly tonight. Praga has already retired. Borussia just staying in the pit lane at the moment. He'll be waiting to see what sort of times these guys are setting. Normally, the best message that is ready for dry tyres is when race controls comes up with DRS enabled. But if he leaves it until then, it might be a bit too late for him to set a lap time. Everyone else, though, is on track apart from those two. So we've got 7 drivers currently making their way around this circuit. We'll just see what sort of times they can do compared to the last session, where obviously it was much, much wetter than this, as Josh does well to hold it out of the wall there. Deso finding it a bit skiddy as well, but you can see they're not really set up for these wet conditions. And Eau Rouge, one of the trickiest corners on the F1 calendar. Josh Hill now is just cruising around, I'm sure, trying to keep his tyres in condition to maybe get another run. And if it does dry out towards the end of the session, that mistake might not be that crucial, as Borussia now heading out on intermediate tyres as well. We've got yellow flags in Sector 1. That is Dynastics travelling very slowly, so can only imagine he's lost the rear end of that Red Bull coming through Radion as well. An extremely tricky corner. Thomas going over Lacombe. You can see how hard they are pushing at the moment to try and set the best possible time. It's Deso, first man really on a hot lap at the moment, with Josh just taking it a bit easier out in front. So we've not really watched the Racer Point driver, the debutant this time around. Let's see what he can do. He's a top tier driver in many other leagues, and he'll be hoping he can carry on that run of fantastic debutants we seem to have here at MIXT Energy FOR. Quick reminder to check out MIXT Energy in the description below and use the code FOR2020 to get 10% off their product. Perfect when you need a bit of a pick-me-up. There's also a link to Player One Coffee where you can get an exclusive coupon code as well. As Josh heads into pits, Deso will be first man across the line in this session, and it is a 155.091 for the Racing Point driver. Westy goes just behind that. Fairhand, though, able to beat it. First man in the 154s with a 154.7. But Pedro's the only other one who's actually going to be setting a hot lap this time around, and he goes just ahead of Westy as well in third position. Dynastics in fifth, but obviously he made a mistake early on, as did Thomas. And Borussia just starting his hot lap as well. Borussia, sure, he'll admit, really needs to find some return to form. Yet to win this season, not been on the podium since Spain, where he finished in second place. Did get 1 point last week with a last minute overtake on the Ferrari of Fight for Day, as we got more yellow flags in Sector 1. That'll just be for the Renault of Pedro, recovering slowly back to the pits. Hopefully it won't get in the way of Borussia. Doesn't want to get himself a penalty and moves well clear out of the way. So let's see what Borussia can do, because if the track is drying out, we'll be able to see with what sort of time the Red Bull can do. Both Red Bulls through to the second part of qualifying, as well as both Renault, so looking very good for them in the Constructors' Championship battle at the moment. Haas will be 10th and 12th on the grid, so we'll need some good performances to ensure they stay in touch. We've got one McLaren and one Williams through as well, and any one of those 5 teams could be at the head of the table tonight. It's poorly orange or Westy who could be leading going into next week's Italian Grand Prix. We'll also be heading to Italy on Tuesday for the F2 Championship, where we saw Lee Finlay take the head of that championship last time around, but Josh, Westy and Denge and many others keeping him honest with 3 more rounds to go in the F2 cars. Borussia now heading down towards Blanchimont. So Max Verstappen really announced himself to the Formula 1 community with a fantastic pass around the outside of Felipe Nasser, I believe it was, in Sauber in 2015. We know what great things he has done for Red Bull since then. Can Borussia carry on the legacy with some great things of his own tonight in the Red Bull? He goes into 6th place, just pushes his teammate down to 7th for now. It's extremely close, you must say, between these top Guys, a second separating the top 6 at the moment. Half a second separating Fairhan down to Westy. So it's all about keeping it nice and clean on this qualifying lap. What you need to do. Thomas and Pedro going out again, as it looks to me to have stopped raining. Looks to have stopped raining. Borussia lost it at the top of the hill. That could become a common phrase tonight. I feel like I might just better off getting a soundboard to say that. Coming out of Radion. Damage to his front wing. He will be able to get back to the pits, but may struggle to get back quick enough, get that wing changed and get another hot lap in. So 6 might be the best he can do, and it is definitely drying out. I wonder if we are going to see anyone take a chance on these slick tyres. It might just be worth it for someone to really get a steal on the field. We saw Alonso do it at Silverstone in Q1 for the McLaren team in 2017, where he was miles faster than everyone else, leaving it right until the last minute, moving from last to first. Someone else might think it is worth the risk as well. Pedro coming out of Pujon. These intermediates beginning to struggle now. He's a bit further around the track, but as well, he might also struggle to head back towards the pit lane. So 4th place might be the best he could do. Let's not forget it's a very long lap, and they won't want to take too much out of those intermediate tyre, or slick tyres, as the case may be, on that first qualifying one. But it's currently Fairhan looking good for his 2nd pole position in a row. Desso is in 2nd position. Thomas 3rd, Pedro 4th, and Westy 5th. Red Bull 6th and 7th, Praga 8th, Josh 9th, and it is showing that he is putting these soft tyres on at the moment. We could see a good adventure here at the moment. We've got some support from Vasta Racer for Loney and Fairhan. DRS has been enabled, so I think we're going to see everyone heading into the pits. I'd expect most of them to put the soft tyres on. Obviously, that is going to be the quickest one. See, Desso, he's actually retired from the session. He went out again on intermediate, so he could find himself dropping way down the order here. They're all going to try and get those tyres changed as quickly as possible and head out as soon as they can. Fairhan then in the Mercedes on the mediums. He's going to be the first man to try it out. 2nd place last week in qualifying. Took the lead straight from the start. Got the victory. Didn't count for anything in the constructors. It didn't count for anything in the drivers, sorry. Got Toro Rosso 25 points, which I'm sure was greatly appreciated. This could be a very tricky outlap. We'll see what Eau Rouge is like on the slick tyres. Already that looks a little more comfortable than everyone else, I have to say. He's got Westy just going behind him. He's out on the soft tyres, so it could be a bit of a rush to get out in this qualifying session. Dynastics, Josh and Thomas, that is, all coming at the same part of the circuit. Hopefully they haven't left this too late, but it's going to have to be a pretty rapid qualifying lap from the Skies, outlap at least, to ensure they get round in time. They should have enough as long as they don't start playing any silly games and start holding each other up. Borussia still in the pits. He's not going to make it around in the time, and well, he's actually headed out now, and I don't think Pedro or Borussia are going to make it around in time. You can see how hard Pedro is pushing himself at the moment, pretty much skipping Eau Rouge and making his own circuit. It's going to be very close for the Renault driver. See if he can get around. Not ideal having to push these soft tyres as hard as he's going to have to, but Borussia, you can just see how hard he's having to push, making up his own circuit, reminiscent of the old high-speed days here at Spa, as he tries to get round as quickly as possible, just pushing way too hard. He's going to overheat these tyres and lower RS to ensure they've got everything that they need for one run at this session. Desso in 2nd, he's not heading out. Praga with that qualifying ban, he won't be. Expect them to be starting 8th and 9th, but it's basically one-shot qualifying like it used to be in Formula 1. And Fairhan will be the first man. Only one on those medium tyres, everyone else on the soft, so he's really going to have to go some to challenge for pole position this time around. Westy. Actually, yeah, Westy just ahead. He's also on the soft tyres, and you can just see the traffic jam here coming out of the final corner. They've all had to slow down slightly, Dynastics and Josh. That will compromise them. Pedro absolutely flooring the Renault round. He's not going to make it in time, so Pedro will not be starting any higher than 4th. Borussia in 6th. They tried their best making their own racetrack, but that is qualifying over for these guys. Let's see what sort of tyres they can do. Westy, obviously, much faster than his previous best, 1.5 seconds. But Furhan is actually even quicker than that on those medium tyres. Maybe just heating up a bit better in these cooler conditions. That is quite common on the F1 game, that once the track dries out, the mediums do seem to be a very versatile tyre. Maybe as the rest of the lap goes, if the track gets even more optimal for dry tyres, we might see a struggle as Fern's lost it through Pruhon, not invalidated his lap, but that is going to be a big time loss. He had to completely get out of the throttle there. I think any chance of getting his first pole position and a second straight front row start have gone out of the window. Westy yet to start on pole position. He's flying in the Williams. He's going to be first man. He will take provisional pole, of course, but we'll just have to see how everyone else can do it. Might be a case of being last man across the line, and that was Pedro, who's finding himself, that was Josh, sorry, who's not too far behind Dynastics, who is invalidated. Gets out of the way of Josh there. So Westy heading towards the finish line. Dynastics will be starting down towards the back of the grid, and it's Westy with a 1:45.427. What can Furhan do on those mediums? Only a 1:46.6. I think that skid cost him a lot of time. Thomas was fastest in Q1. He goes fastest for now with a 1:44.6, and that is enough to claim pole position in the end. Josh slotting in behind in second. Westy demoted to third, but those three have really been the class of the field here in FOR F1. This is the first time we're going to see them, all three of them battling towards the front. Furhan in fourth, the only other driver to set a time on dry tyres in that session. Deso ran out of time, as did Pedro and Borussia. Dynastics making a mistake on his hot lap. He'll be starting 8th, and Praga, with that qualifying ban from the absence last week, he will be starting in 9th. Pretty much anyone's guess who could win this race. We don't know what setups they won. They're all going to be able to start on fresh tyres. With it being a dry race, this is definitely going to be one to watch. 22 laps of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit coming right up. It's definitely still a very overcast circuit here for the race. Round 13 might be an opportunity for some of those who had issues in qualifying, though, to make their way up through the field. Paulie Orange only starting 12th, and Denge outside of the top 10 after his podium last time out. Lawrence not setting a time. Altiero, we know he's quick. He'll be starting from the back of the grid as well. This is going to be a very lively race, I feel. Plenty of overtaking opportunities around this circuit. 19 corners, the best being obviously using the DRS zones down into La Source if you can, perhaps the bus stop, and then obviously along the long Kemmel Straight, that DRS zone, perhaps a bit unnecessary down there with the slipstreaming that goes on. Quite often you might see a move happen before you get to Lecombe. We saw 2018 the two Force Indias going side by side with Vettel and Hamilton into that corner, and if you were watching F2 on Tuesday, I think we were nearly 6 wide at one point, and it was no surprise that that didn't end well for one of the drivers, with Lawrence finding himself getting spun around. He'll be hoping for a better race in F1 this time around. We'll see what tyres the drivers have gone for. Majority of the field on the mediums. Josh, Pedro and Praga on the soft. So Josh definitely wanting to get past Thomas in these early stages and make a run for it on those soft tyres. We'll have a quick run through the championship standings then. The top drivers that you need to think about: Paulie Orange 119 points, Westy 108, Josh 92, Borussia 90, Droftas 83. We've got our pole sitter Thomas, he's on 50 points. Furhan yet to score any. Deso not scoring any. Pedro is only on 8 points. So some of these guys near the front could really make a big charge. It's getting late on in the season. But with Paulie Orange, championship leader, down in 12th, it's a perfect opportunity for Westy in third to to take the championship lead. If they finished as they started, Westy would take the championship lead. It's been his best qualifying for a while. It's been Thomas's best qualifying by a long way. First time he started anywhere near the front of the order. And he's won 2 races starting for the back. Retired last week after an accident at Hungary, where he was looking very good indeed, and it wouldn't have surprised me if he'd have made it 3 out of 3. You won't be complaining too much with 3 out of 4, but with Josh being on that softer rubber, it's going to be a very difficult first couple of laps. He'll really be trying to keep that Renault behind him, and if he can't, just staying in touch. Both Renaults going for the soft tyres. It's going to be interesting to see how they cope with these first few laps, as all the field now just heading around on the formation lap. Don't want to be hanging around for too long. That is why Thomas is just slowing the pace down. You lose tyre temperature, lose brake temperature. And that is one thing you definitely want heading into the slowest corner of the circuit. For La Source for turn 1, and then obviously not hitting the brakes again. Flat out all the way from the exit of La Source. Nearly 25-30 seconds before you brake again for Lecombe. There'll be plenty of overtaking there in the race, but hopefully they'll all be able to just keep it nice and clean on the first lap. Everyone lined up, all 19 cars ready as we wait for the lights to come on here at Spa. There's 1, there's 2, 3, 4. We've got 5 lights on here. They go out and we are racing here at Spa. It's a good start from Thomas. He's having to come over already on Josh, though, defending that position. Furhan trying to go around the outside of Westy in the early stages, but everyone looks to have made their way through cleanly on turn 1. Josh on the back of Thomas then, already making use of those tyres as Pedro going side by side with Desso through a Rouge, managing to get ahead already, and Josh moving to the outside. He got a much better exit. They've got yellow flags already. Borussia is out of the session, and it is a virtual safety car already. Furhan they're moving up. Jonathan Cox getting a 5-second penalty for a severe collision with YBR. It's quite often to see them under the VSC when they just get caught out by the car in front slowing down. Unfortunately, won't be able to get that removed as that will be served in the pits, and he'll have to pit pretty soon with a lot of damage. We've got a span of Sweden here in the chart. Ben Kelly, he'll be hoping for a good performance then from Andench, who managed to move up a bit on the first lap. We'll get the position change. As you can see, Braga going up 2 places. YBR and Lawrence up 4. Droftas and Aylan dropping. I'm not sure if they got caught up in that Borussia incident as well. We've gone green again, and Furhan all over the back of Josh. He really seemed to have gained some places early on and some time under that VSC period. And I think Josh would have had Thomas if it wasn't for that virtual safety car coming out, but he'll definitely have plenty more opportunities. Pedro, his teammate, wanted to make the best use of those soft tyres as well. He's all over the back of Westy. We've already had 1 retirement. It was Borussia who really needed a good race to keep his championship hopes alive, and he's not found so, as Hibilo is also out. That is coming out of Paul Frere. Yellow flags then. Is just going to go for a move down into the bus stop. No, he is not. Westy defending vigorously from Pedro as well, who's going to get a much better exit. Just finds himself tucked up underneath that rear wing. So 2 retirements already on lap 1, but Thomas still in the lead as now Pedro making a move down the inside of Westy, just leaving him enough room. Westy's exit compromise though, and that's the 2nd place lost in the first 2 laps for the Williams. Pedro's gained 2 places now. He's up into 4th place. And I hope Josh was watching his mirrors to see how that was done from Pedro as he now gets in the slipstream of Thomas. No DRS until next lap around. Thomas not really bothering to defend too much. Down the inside goes Josh. He takes the lead of this race now. Thomas might be playing the long game here. Might just want to hang around a bit longer. Of course, if he stays within a second, he'll have DRS next time around. So whether that was tactical or not, we'll have to wait and see. Jonathan Cox has been into the pits. He's put the hard tyres on. Might try to manage those towards the end of the race, but it's not been a great start for him in the racing point. And Desso losing a place as well. That penalty will have been served now for Jonathan Cox. Hibilo and Borussia both retiring on lap 1. Disaster for them. Droftas again dropping on lap 1. This seems to happen quite often for him lately. We know he's consistent, just seems to get stuck in lap 1 incidents and that has really ruined any hopes he had of contending in his championship. He knew he wasn't the fastest, but he was hoping his consistency would be enough. But with some of these faster guys coming in, he's finding it a bit tougher now here in FOR. Dynastics and Loney side by side coming through the first part, heading towards Blanchimont. The Red Bull just getting his nose ahead. That's forced Loney off track. He's got himself a penalty there, and Anden's just finding the track covered ahead of him. Josh onto lap 3, so DRS will be enabled then down the Kemmel Straight, as Dynastics now having to defend from Loney. Once again, the Haas choosing not to have a go this time around, and Anden's not close enough either. Although I think Dynastics just ran slightly wide but got away with it there. Josh has got the gap up to nearly a second there, and Josh is not enough ahead to have Thomas not using DRS, so Thomas may just be trying to use that DRS to stay in contact. Furhan hasn't got that option though, and look how easy it is down the Kemmel Straight when you've got the extra grip for Eau Rouge, when you've got the drag reduction system active. Pedro making it 2 Renaults in the top 3. It's been a fantastic first lap at the moment. And Praga as well, also moving up on those soft tyres. They're having to make the best of things, and Praga's definitely going to be hoping he can get past Desso, Westy and Furhan, but with all those guys having DRS, it is going to be difficult. Droftas moved past Aylan as well. Jonathan Cox getting himself another time penalty. I have a feeling it could be a long afternoon in the cockpit of that Racing Point. The weather looking a bit sunnier now than it did at the start of this race, so hopefully rain will not be an issue, and I'm sure all the drivers, after the rain late last week, and we also had rain late at Silverstone as well, we'll be hoping that is the case. So Josh out in front, 1 second, he's got the gap above that now. How early will we see the Renault heading into the pits? Will we going for the medium tyres, I imagine, in his pit stop, unless it comes out early for a safety car, then he might be forced to go for the hards. But now that the field's spreading out a bit more, the safety car a bit less likely, as Praga trying to use them tyres all over the back of Desso at the moment. But as you can see, the Racing Point's got DRS, Westy has DRS, Desso just running slightly wide there. Toro Rosso trying to get his nose underneath, but not able to do anything about it. This time around, Furhan, he's going to have DRS on Pedro. Oh, to see, just having to lift off a bit more through Eau Rouge there. Less grip on those tyres and the dirty air. That has compromised him slightly. Westy had dropped out of DRS range of the Mercedes, and Desso is going to make his way up into 5th place. We've got Dynastics moving ahead of Loney as well. Paulie Orange ahead of Anden. Just one Haas gains a place, another one loses one. But he's gone slightly deep there as Paulie Orange into Lacombe, and Anden is going to try and get the position back. Great racing between the two of them. They were very close out on track for that final podium position last week. Well, now it's Anden who has moved up into 10th position in the end. Desso up into 5th as well. Westy seems to be dropping back slightly in these early stages, and he's not going to find it going any easier with Praga wanting to use them soft tyres to their best potential. Praga a bit of an unknown quantity. Silverstone didn't exactly go to plan for him. Retired on lap 1 in Germany. We know he's quick. He's shown that getting into Q3 this time around, but with that quali ban, again, we couldn't see what he could do, so he'll be hoping for a good race on that alternative strategy that the leader is on, and the leader's teammate Pedro on as well, as he tries to catch up to Thomas. Could we see a Renault 1-2 this time around? Thomas is going to have a lot to say about it, and I feel last week's race winner Furhan is going to want to get himself involved and get another podium and get his Drivers' Championship tally moving as well. On lap 5 then, still Josh in the lead, then Thomas, Pedro, Furhan and Desso rounding out the top 5, as Droftas gets himself a penalty for exceeding track limits. On board then with the Toro Rosso of Praga, just dropping back slightly from Westy. These cars spreading out enough so that they need him with DRS to just keep in touch with them at the moment. As you can see, Furhan closing into Pedro, but not getting close enough. Thomas is doing a great job, I must say, on the back of Josh, as Paulie Orange again moving past Andenge. As long as he keeps it cleaner on the brakes this time around into Lacombe, that should be the position done. And that is both Hasses into the points, 9th and 10th. They're really going to need that for the Constructors' Championship, with Renault looking very good at the moment. Both cars on for a podium. Further down the field, we've got Lawrence has gone around. Lawrence has gone around in the Ferrari. Just manages to avoid anyone, but that's big damage for the Sol Ferrari. He'll be heading into the pits, and it looks like being a very tough race once again for the Scuderia. He's really gone around into the wall this time. Lawrence is out. Safety car is out. Are we going to see Josh, Pedro and Praga head into the pit lane? I'll have to wait and see. Lawrence was extremely close on track with Artillero. I was just about to head on board with the Alfa Romeo to see if there was any battle going on between them. There's no damage on the Alfa Romeo, so I'm not sure if there was any contact made, as we did come onto the stream already with Lawrence already out of control. He's their third retirement in this race, but the other two, it was a virtual safety car. This time it's a full one, and indeed Josh does head into the pits. Is Pedro far enough behind to do the same? Thomas also coming in, and he's earned himself a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, so seeing pretty much everyone head into the pits in the early stages here. It's going to be a very busy pit lane, and Pedro might just about get away with that. Held up ever so slightly with the double stack, but it's Josh who's come out in the lead on those medium tyres. He won't have to pit again, neither will Thomas. Westy also going for the hard tyres. Dynastics on the softs. That's a different strategy to everyone else that we're seeing here. Everyone that started on the softs has gone to the mediums. Everyone that started on the mediums has gone on to the hards, except Dynastics, who's gone to the softs, and Praga going from soft to hard. So there's no way the Red Bull's going to be able to keep those tyres lasting in good condition for the rest of the race. So this is going to be very interesting indeed to see what he can do. 3 retirements already. Loney actually lost a bit of time in that pit stop period. Dropped behind his teammate, so Paulie Orange must have managed to get ahead of Loney before the pit stop then, because obviously Loney would have been ahead into the pit, so it's not normally he was ahead on track anyway, so not sure how Loney has actually dropped back there as Artillero has retired. Under the safety car, Artillero has gone out of this race. That is just coming into the second part of Lake Home, so a 4th retirement. Big race of attrition here at Spa. It's a circuit the drivers love for the challenge. Not sure they expected to find it this challenging at the moment with the wet qualifying, but Artillero is out of this session. Hibilu saying he's found it frustrating. He is out of the race, and it could have been a big chance for him to get his first points, as this looks like it's not going to be a lot of finishes, but already down to 15. Barosha and Hibilu retiring early on. Lawrence, that crash brought out the safety car, and Artillero managing to lose it underneath the safety car as well. But it's Josh now in the lead of this race, doesn't have to pit again. He'll be looking good at the moment. All those on the mediums also going to the hard tyres, so they'll be hoping. Thomas will be hoping that this safety car does not stay out too long, and Josh has to do a bit of tyre management, or maybe even pit again. One man who is going to be interested to watch, Dynastics, sole remaining Red Bull on the soft tyres. He's going to have to be like lightning in these first few laps after the safety car to make best use of those soft tyres. Those ahead of on hards, with them all having DRS, it might be a bit tougher, and he might have to get a bit imaginative with his overtakes, as he's actually heading into the pits, as is Westy. Interesting here. Westy and Dynastics heading into the pits. I'm guessing Dynastics is just going to go back onto the medium tyres, as is Westy, but they're going to drop all the way down the order. Russia here saying he thinks Josh has got a free win, and that soft runners ended up being the perfect strat because of the safety car, and indeed Dynastics and Westy have gone back onto the medium tyres, but they are going to be right at the back of the field. So in normal conditions, that is going to be it for the pit stops, you'd imagine. But already we're only a third of the way through this race, and with 4 retirements, I think this is going to be anything but a normal Belgian Grand Prix. Josh leading then from Thomas. Verhan up to 3rd. Deso 4. Praga has moved up to 5th position. Big winner in the early stages there. So gaining 4 places. Pedro staying in his stop slot. Paulie Orange up 5 places, and with Westy, the nearest man to him in the championship, being down in 14th and going to have a lot of overtaking to do. He could find himself extending that lead slightly. Josh will, of course, get closer to him, and Den just moved up 3 places. Someone we haven't really spoke about in this session so far, YBR, had a fantastic start to this race. 16th to 9th. He'll be very happy with how he's doing. And he's on those hard tyres. They'll definitely get to the end with the safety car carrying on for a bit longer. Those mediums should be fine to get to the end as long as they don't take it too hard. And these are all, of course, very wise racers. So looks like one stop going to be the order of the day, but another safety car for any incidents could, of course, change anything. And I think we could see it coming in this lap. The whole field has closed up now. Expect Josh to just pull away though in those first few laps. Pedro in the Renault, he'll be looking to make plenty of overtakes on that one set softer tyres. And there we go, safety car coming in this lap. Josh effectively now the safety car just has to control everything to keep it nice and easy. He's looking good to take his second win in a row, but he's going to have 15 laps, and we know how fast Thomas can be. Breaking that 1 second window for the DRS could be oh so crucial here. And when is Josh going to floor it? He doesn't want to go too early and give everyone a great run on him. They can't overtake before the start finish line, so there won't be any lunges into the bus stop. So Josh, perhaps that is why he's just leaving it a bit later here. And that is it. He's put the hammer down to try and catch some of these other guys out. Loney's got himself a penalty for a collision with YBR. And he's trying to go for it, but you can't overtake at this point in the race. You've got to wait until after the safety car line, surely here. But after the start-finish line, but there we go. Loney has gone past YBR already. Josh is first, Thomas second, Jonathan Cox trying to move past Droftas. Those two are battling further down the field. And there we go, Loney's got himself a penalty for ignoring yellow flags. Big frustrating start for him in the Haas. That is 10 seconds of penalties he's going to have. One he might be able to get removed, the other one I don't think so. Thomas has dropped quite back from Josh as Fairhand closing up in the Mercedes, but not enough to make a move. Pedro has though on those medium tyres, trying to go round the outside of Praga at Lacombe. Nothing doing this time around, and Andenge all over the back of Paulie Orange. These two were pretty much inseparable at the dry part of the race in the Hungaroring in the first part. It's looking the same again this time around, but this time the Haas in the lead, and Andenge sandwiched between the two Haasses with Loney, who's got them penalties hanging over him in ninth, so he really needs to try and get out of the traffic and make the best of things if he wants to finish high up today. Josh has already got that gap up over a second, making best use of those mediums. Pedro tried, but Praga was just able to hold him off, and given that Praga started on the soft tyres, I'm surprised he didn't go for the mediums either, as Jonathan Cox making a move past Aylan. The Racing Point trying to move up in the early stages. Westy and Dynastics getting past Droftas as well, as Westy also there. You can see he's just sticking his nose down the inside of Aylan, who finds himself on the marbles off the racing line as Dynastics tried to take advantage of that there. At the end of this first lap back racing though, the end of lap 8, it's going to be Josh with a 1.3 second lead, as Pedro this time at the bus stop chicane has got past Praga, who's heading into the pits. So is he going for the medium tyres as well? Perhaps would have been better to do that under the safety car, because he's going to lose a chunk of time and he's retired from the session. So I'm not sure what's happened there, but Praga has retired from the session. He's done it in the pits, but that is both Toro Rossos now out of this race. And I can't say I really understand that one from Praga, because he was looking to be running pretty good. But he's out of the race, so we're down to 14 runners. Droftas is the last of those in 14th, but his teammate is in third at the moment, trying to keep in contact with Thomas. Deso fourth as Pedro tries to make use of those mediums. You can see how hard he's pushing, getting himself a penalty there. He is now in 5th position and he's really going for it at this moment in time. Further back, Droftas and Aylan finding himself getting passed by Dynastics and Westy and Jonathan Cox, who are all on those medium tyres. If I'm not mistaken, Jonathan Cox, he started on the mediums, but he did pit obviously for the hards and had to pit again under the safety car. So yeah, ignore me, he is fine to carry on to the end on those mediums. So Just shows if he can hang in the race, it can be pretty good. And look how much more grip he's got at this stage over YBR, really being held up by the Williams, who's dropped back a bit from Loney. This now a battle for the final points positions, 9th and 10th. Westy right on the back of Jonathan Cox, who nearly loses it coming through Paul Frere. Thankfully avoids the wall. Thankfully Westy avoids him. Well, that promotes the Williams up into 10th, just behind his teammate. And I think he'll be wanting to get dispatched off YBR sooner rather than later. Is it going to be in the bus stop? He tries to go down the inside. Jonathan Cox tries to go around the outside, but completely outbreaks himself. Dynastic says thank you very much. So Jonathan Cox losing quite a few places there. He is down to 12, and Westy did get past his teammate. He is up into 9th place. DRS has been enabled, though, now. So will Desso be able to use it on Furhan? Rear wing open on the racing point. Furhan, is he going to have to feel the need to go defensive? He's not feeling like he's going to have to. Desso's going to say thank you very much. Late on the brakes. Furhan trying to hold it off round the outside. That gives him the inside for the next bit. But the outside once again. And that is Desso up into 3rd place on his debut. Loney getting past Andenge as well. And Jonathan Cox battling with Dynastic. So that is the racing points back into the points. And Alan and Droftas onto the back of these as well. Loney's next target will be his teammate, 1.3 seconds ahead, as Desso tries to catch up to Thomas. Gap to Thomas, 1.5 seconds. The gap to the leader, 3.2 seconds at this point in the race. So Pedro not closing that gap to these guys as much as I thought he would. Needs to get within a second, because I feel not having DRS is really costing him big at the moment. Needs to use the pace of these medium tyres while they are fresher. They will last to the end, but in the final lap or two, expect the hard tyres to have the pace over them. So it really is now or never for him. His teammate Josh perfectly utilising them tyres. The 1.7 second lead at the moment. Hassler's running line astern, 6th and 7th. They've slowly moved their way up through the field with retirements and good positioning through the safety car period as well. The Westy, Jonathan Cox and Dynastics, 9th, 10th and 11th. They'll be looking to get themselves on the back of these and Andenge sooner rather than later. See the two has dropping back slightly from Paulie Orange, as you'd expect. Andenge not really able to keep in contact, so that could leave him assisting Duck in the next couple of laps. From the Williams Racing Point and Red Bull behind the Mercedes of Furhando, trying to get past Desso. Same place where we lost that 3rd position this time around, not close enough to do it there. Racing Point plays this car just right to get the best exit through La Source and Aubuge. He maintains 3rd place for now. Alem has moved past YBR. He's up into 12th place. YBR sadly dropping back now in the Williams, while his teammate in the other Williams tries to move his way forward and catch up to Andenge. We saw Loney get another penalty. He's really pushing hard at the moment. Altiero dropped, I think, 3 or 4 places last week at the Hungarvo ring, and it could be Loney doing the same, especially if we see another safety car. That will really cost him on penalties. Got a yellow flag in sector 2. I'm not quite sure who that was for. Must have been Jonathan Cox heading off the circuit. He's dropped down to last position. So he's going to fight his way back up the order once again. He's already had to do it once under the safety car period, and he's going to find it hard again. Gaps at the front seem to be spreading out a bit. Josh 1.8 seconds ahead of Thomas. Desso 1.6 seconds behind him. Furhan just keeping it in DRS range for now. This could be a very big battle for the final podium slot as Pedro tries to keep in contact, but he's finding it increasingly hard. The Renault in 5th place would be his best finish, of course. Pedro only making his debut last week out and finished 6th after, I'm sure will he admit, not an ideal Hungaroring race after starting from pole. But this time Furhan looks closer than he did last lap around, and Desso is surely going to have to stay over to the right hand side, but I don't think that's going to make a difference. Loney has retired from the session. Virtual safety car is out. Did Furhan get that move done before the VSC come out? Well, he's staying in 3rd place. He can only assume so, and the longer these virtual safety cars and safety cars happen, the better it is for those on the medium tyres, because they will be able to save them just a bit more. So we're down to 13 runners now. It could well be everyone who finished this race manages to secure a point, because we're only just over halfway, lap 12 out of 22. We've already now had 6 retirements. Loney's debut as a reserve in the Haas not going to plan whatsoever. That won't be ideal for Haas in the Constructors' Championship either, as they've now only got Paulie Orange still in the race. Dynastic's the only Red Bull in the race, so Renault will be looking good to extend their lead. Josh fairly cockily said he doesn't think Renault will be headed. With him leading this race and Pedro in 5th, they're definitely going to be looking good to take a sizable lead at the moment. DRS has been enabled once again here. So green flag underway with 10 and a bit laps remaining. Verhan able to catch up actually slightly to Thomas under that VSC period. That is an art, keeping us close to the delta time as possible, as did Desso as well. Thomas doing a good job on them hard tyres, keeping that gap at just over a second to Josh, but he may find himself having to go very defensive next time around, which will just help Josh pull away. Verhan won last week and Josh was second. I'm sure the Mercedes driver will want a similar finishing order this time around. YBR heading into the pits. He had a good start to the race, but it all seems to have fallen apart for the Williams driver since then. So Verhan will have the DRS open on his Mercedes. Seems a bit far back from the McLaren to do anything. Likewise, Desso with Verhan ahead. And no overtaking this time around. But Verhan really pushing hard indeed. Dynastics in 9th. Now as Alan, who's in the points in 10th. Jonathan Cox and Droftas battling down the Kemmel Straight for 11th and 12th position. And it's for DRS on that Mercedes that allows him to make a move. He is up into 11th. We always know Droftas, when there's some chaos on, he's going to be there or thereabouts, and he could still pick up a couple of points for the Mercedes team to move them off the foot of the table, seeing as it's going to be nil point for the Ferrari team this time around. Very close at the front of the order now though, with Thomas, Verhan and Desso extremely close to Josh. The top 4 separated by 3 seconds. Pedro still trying to close up on those medium tyres in 5th. Paulie Orange 6th and then 7th. Westy Dynastics also on the mediums 8th and 9th. And Alan rounding out the points in 10th position at the moment. Desso, we've seen him battling with Verhan all the race long, and he seems a lot closer to the Mercedes than the Mercedes is to the McLaren. So I don't think attacking is going to be the number one thing on Verhan's mind this time around. He's just going to be thinking about defending from the racing point. Gets a very good run though through the bus stop chicane and stretches that gap ever so slightly. DRS will allow Desso to close it up into La Source, but he will lose it again as Dynastics has headed into the pits in the Red Bull. So from 10th place, only done 6 laps on those tyres. Very surprised to see him come in. Can only imagine this is for a front wing change, and yet they have got a front wing out, so he's going to drop down further back, probably just ahead of YBR, and he'll be coming out on the soft tyres, so he might be going for the fastest lap. And even if you don't finish in the top 10 here at FOR, you do get that point for the fastest lap of the race. But Josh looking very good for 25 points at the moment. Started in 2nd place. Surprising that he's only really had 1 win, given the consistency and the pace that he has shown, and this win is really going to close him up to the head of the championship, especially considering Westy is only in 8th place. How far up will he be able to move? Now he's catching up to Andenge and some of these others. Yellow flag in sector 1. I'm guessing that was just for YBR. We got it a bit wrong through Orouge and Madion, and indeed missing part of his front wing, but still carrying on, and it might be worth it because I don't think he'll be the last driver to make a mistake through there. This battle for second still continuing with Thomas, Verhan and Desso. Thomas definitely looks quicker at this through the middle sector, and that's allowing him to just stretch ahead of Verhan, who got a great exit through the bus stop last time, which kept him safe from the racing point behind, and I think he's going to need something similar this time around to ensure he's not challenged. And again, he just looks so good on the brakes into the bus stop chicane, just closes up to Thomas slightly and pulls that gap away from Desso. And these are doing a fantastic job, as Pedro on those medium tyres has probably already taken the best out of them. He is in 5th place and might soon have to start paying attention to the drivers behind him. Now, will Desso be able to use the DRS to get past Ferhan? He'll have it as well. But Desso having the double toe, of course. But Ferhan, he's not caring about the racing point. He's looking at the McLaren. He's looking forward. He's looking down the inside before we even get to Lecombe. And the Mercedes driver up into second position. Great move from him. We've got the same top two as last week. But roles reversed now with 8 laps to go. It is Ferhan up into second with a big lock up on that front right into Bruxelles. That won't cause him too much harm. YBR in the pits. Yet again, that will be his 3rd stop of this race. Dynastics also making 3 stops. You can see Westy and Jonathan Cox have made 2 as well. See what Westy can do. Really glad he's on those medium tyres. He's moved past Andenge. Came from the back of the field to finish 5th last time. Was at the back after he pitted for the 2nd time. And he could well finish as high as 5th, if not a bit higher this time around. As long as those mediums are staying pretty good towards the end. YBR has come out on the soft tyres, so he's going to be going for the fastest lap point in the other Williams. There's Thomas really close to the back of Ferhan heading into the bus stop chicane. Ferhan's been extremely confident on the brakes for the last couple of laps. And again, Thomas not really able to get close enough. He's going to be wise and just use the DRS. As Desso, nothing he can do. The driver he's attacking is always going to have DRS, so he's going to have to come up with something imaginative here. Otherwise, I feel 4th place might be the best he could do. But penalties, of course, in the final few stages could change anything. See, Desso is really close to the back of Thomas, who's dropped back slightly from Ferhan. But that's going to change once for DRS opens. It's the Mercedes going to feel the need to go defences, moving slightly over to the right hand side, but Thomas not able to do anything. He might have to keep an eye on his right hand side. There was Desso in the end not looking at that overtake. There we go, fastest lap from Dynastics, 1:45.798, determined to get that bonus point. Pedro not been able to use those medium tyres. Once the cars ahead of him had the DRS, he's found it difficult to keep up. It just negated his advantage, and he could be in trouble in the final few laps as those tyres begin to wear. We'll have to wait and see. 3 seconds for gap back to Paulie Orange from 5th place. 7 laps to go. He should be fine, especially as Paulie Orange's attention is going to be on Westy. We'll have DRS next time around as he tries to make his way up into 6th place. These two, top 2 in the championship. Things stayed as they are. Paulie Orange would still have a lead. He'd actually have 13-point lead over Westy, but it'd be Josh who will have closed up into 2nd place if things stay as they are at the moment. It'd be Josh just 10 points behind Paulie Orange. So Paulie Orange will be hoping to make his way up the order. Westy will as well, as he doesn't want to drop down to 3rd place at the moment. He's going to have DRS on the Kemmel Straight as well. Thomas and Desso, as Thomas has actually tapped Ferhan slightly into La Source. That really compromised the pair of them. Desso not able to take advantage, but look how close the McLaren is to the back of Ferhan. You don't want to be close to that someone coming through a Rouge and Radion, because you have to lift off, and you can see Desso able to keep the momentum, sweeps around the outside of Thomas, but he's not going to have the slipstream that the McLaren's got. We're nearly going to be 3 wide here, and Thomas is just not finding himself with a gap. Desso round the outside of Ferhan. Can he make it stick? Yes, he can. That is how you get past 2 cars in 1 manoeuvre, ladies and gentlemen. He is now up into 2nd place, as Westy was not able to get past Paulie Orange that time around. Thomas there looked as though he was going to be challenging for 2nd. Got too close to Ferhan at the back of La Source. Got too close coming up to Eau Rouge. Had to lift off the throttle. Desso said thank you very much. And he takes 2nd with 4.4 seconds. So to find to Josh with 6 laps to go. This Renault driver looking very good for his 2nd victory of the season, and to move up to that 2nd place in the championship. But now Ferhan, he's got to try and regather his thoughts. Won't be too happy, I'm sure, about Thomas bumping him into La Source, because he was doing pretty well to hold on to that 2nd place up until that point. And actually, this is just allowing Pedro to pull on to these guys. Again, Thomas, through the 2nd sector, is able to get really close, and through Blanchimont. But Ferhan just seems to have a bit more pace through Blanchimont, and he's very good on the brakes into the bus stop chicane as well. So perhaps that's why Thomas seemed a bit desperate to attack into last source. This time though, he's going to have the double toe, not Desso, and it's Desso who's gone very deep into the hairpin. Furhan nearly had a look down the inside, but the Racing Point able to hold on. You can just see there, Furhan making an adjustment on his ERS, on his fuel, saving a bit as we come up the hill. It's not really as effective at full speed. The DRS definitely is though. You can see the rear wing opening on that Mercedes. Desso not bothering to go defensive this time around, and that is Furhan up into second, and Thomas just a bit far back to do anything about it as Westy finally gets past Paulie Orange up into 6th place. Pedro, his next target, is 3 seconds ahead. Will there be enough time for the Williams to do that? And that of course just gets Josh even closer in the championship. We've got a yellow flag in sector 2, and that is, I don't have, has there been some contact here between Desso and Thomas, because they've both dropped way down the order, and that is Pedro up into 3rd place. We missed that on stream, but that has allowed Furhan 3 in second. Surely Desso and Thomas must have made contact, and Pedro is managing to get on the podium. We could see 2 Renaults on the podium. That didn't look likely just a few seconds ago, and Westy, he's now right on the back of Thomas. So that was into Bruxelles. Whether Thomas has gone for a bit of a dive bomb down the inside, he made a few questionable moves at Silverstone. That's what got him penalties, so hopefully that's not the case this time around. But he will have been very close obviously to Desso going into that point of the lap, but he's really cost him because he's going to lose DRS this time around. And has Pedro kept enough of his medium tyres to defend from the Racing Point, who is going to be desperate to get a podium on debut? I am sure. With 4 laps to go, it's still Josh 4.6 seconds ahead. He's looking comfortable at the head of the field. Furhan, after that incident between Desso and Thomas, looking pretty comfortable in second. Pedro looking anything but in 3rd at the moment. Desso's going to have a run on him through Radion and coming along the Kemmel Straight, and Westy's going to have likewise on Thomas behind. But Paulie Orange, he's not too far back. Could we see the Haas sneaking his way into the top 5 as Pedro, is he going to feel the need to go defensive? A late move from him as Desso tries to go all the way round the outside at the first part of Lecombe, having to take to the runoff area. Still ahead though. They're going to be side by side heading down to Bruxelles. Pedro's round this time. He's in the wall and lost his front wing. It's all kicking off in the final few laps here. That's Thomas back up into 4th. There was contact between them. YBR has left the session. Hopefully he'll be able to rejoin, because he might still pick up some points here, because Pedro's going to have to pit and be extremely slow on the way around. So that's allowed Thomas to catch back up to Desso. There you can see Jonathan Cox getting past Pedro. There was a bit of rubbing between the two of them through Lacombe. Desso having to take to the escape road to that tarmac runoff they have there. And they went side by side through Bruxelles. And there was a bit of wheel rubbing again. And in the end, that drops Pedro into the barriers. He's now out of the points. He will have to pit stop. And fastest lap is the best he can hope for in the Renault team. They'll still be well clear in the constructors at the end of tonight, but definitely not as far as they wanted to be. Or getting ever so lively for these guys for the final podium spot. But one guy who seems to have had a pretty much faultless race so far, 3 laps to go, is Josh. 4.1 seconds ahead now at the moment. And he's looking very good to take his second victory of the season. His main championship rivals, Westy and Paulie Orange, are now in 5th and 6th, partly thanks to the misfortune of some of the others. We might still see a bit more action. We've seen Thomas and Desso. I think something's already happened between these two drivers. That's what dropped them down the field initially. Pedro there getting a 5-second penalty for speeding in front of the pit lane, and he retires from the session, so we're down to just 12 runners here. And with YBR having disconnected from the session, that is practically 11 runners. Dwarfdas now finds himself in the points. And what were we saying about him always managing to find a few points? He is there. He's not too far behind Alan and Jonathan Cox either, so he could pick up a few more points in the Mercedes. This could actually be a very handy weekend for the Brackley team. The big battle out on track though, that could have a big say on the championship, is Desso, Thomas and Westy. 3rd, 4th and 5th, all just staying around about a second of the car in front of the McLaren and the Williams. With 2 laps to go at the end of this one, Desso won't have DRS. Pedro's not too far But Paulie Orange, I should say, he's not too far back either. I'll have a quick look at the penalty situation for these front runners. Josh has kept it clean. Ferhan has one penalty, as Desso has kept it clean as well. Thomas had that 5-second penalty, which has still got to add on at the end of the race, of course. Westy has kept it clean, and Paulie Orange, no penalties either. So Thomas really needs to get a move on. He could drop behind Paulie Orange and perhaps even Andenge as things stand at the moment. And Ferhan, he has that 3-second penalty, but it's not looking like it will affect him at the moment. But with this many incidents between the front runners, I'm sure the stewards might have a very busy evening and Sunday and Monday ahead of them. They're not going to have any relaxing bank holiday weekend sat in the garden downing a few beers, I am sure. Now we'll see if Thomas is going to be downing any champagne on the podium. If so, he needs to get past Desso and pull out a 5-second gap. And he's not able to do the first one of those at the moment, although he has got ahead of Westy. I think those medium tyres beginning to wear out. Now Jonathan Cox looking more under pressure in 8th place. Westy dropping back, and you can see Josh, he's pretty comfortable, but he has lost a second to Ferhan, so he should be fine. Dynastics heading into the pits again. That's his 4th pit stop. Whether that's to put on another fresh set of tyres, go for an even quicker fastest lap, because he does still have that at the moment. Or whether this is to retire, I imagine it's just for another fresh set of tyres, and YBR going for the same as well. See, they're only fighting over 1 point at the moment, but all credit to them fighting tooth and nail at the end. Time trial style, pretty much. They're going to have one final lap to give it all the beans and try and secure that final point. Thomas giving it full gas at the moment on the back of Desso. These two looking pretty comfortable in 3rd and 4th at the moment. Desso should get 3rd as long as there's no contact between the two of them. They are moving on to the final lap as Desso really struggling through the first part of the bus stop, drifting almost. He'll be wanting to keep it on track. He might not have to defend too much so if Thomas goes for him, but hopefully they manage to keep it clean. And you can see Desso there just letting him by. Very clever. They're both, well, in fact Thomas there just lifted off. He doesn't want Desso to have his slipstream and have the DRS, of course. He don't want to do that too much because that might allow Westy to close up to the back of these guys. Desso not as good a run as the McLaren through Radion. That's going to give a perfect opportunity for Thomas. DRS open down the Kemmel straight. Gets it done before the braking zone. Desso tucks into the slipstream, but nothing doing this time around. And Westy too far back. It looks like 5th on track, which will turn into a 4th. It's going to be the best that he can do. And he'll be pretty happy with that after having to come from the back with 2 pit stops under the safety car. Aylan trying to close up on the back of Jonathan Cox. Nothing doing either for 8th and 9th. It's been a quiet race, I must say, from Aylan and Droftas, but they've kept it clean enough to finish. They did drop a few positions on lap 1, of course, but since keeping it pretty clean afterwards, they've managed to pick up a couple of points. It will be good for Aylan and the McLaren team with Thomas in 3rd. They're still in this constructors battle as well. But you could say 80 points separating anyone. There's not any team who is out of it. Renault definitely looking good at the head of the Constructors' Championship though. And Josh really staking a claim here in the Drivers' Championship battle as he rounds the bus stop chicane for one last time, heading across the line. Josh is victorious here in FOR round 13. Ferhan will finish 2nd. Thomas will cross the line in 3rd, but in the end it's going to be Desso who takes it on penalties. Westy will move up to 4th as well, and Paulie Orange, he's always there or thereabouts. He moves 5th. Thomas dropping 3 places there because of penalties. Andenge will cross the line in 7th place. Jonathan Cox will hold on to 8th. We'll have to see if penalties affect the order between these guys as well. Indeed they do. Aylan moves up to 8th. Well, Aylan ends up staying in 9th. Droftas swapping places with Jonathan Cox. Droftas moving up 2. Jonathan Cox dropping down 2. And let's see how the fastest lap battle is going then between these two drivers, Dynastics and YBR, at this moment in time. It's like being back in qualifying here at the end of the session. Dynastics up on his personal best. YBR was as well, but you'd think the Red Bull has just got the advantage at the moment as he's going to secure that point for the fastest lap. And like we said, the Constructors' Championship so close. That could be very important at the end of the season. Not an ideal race though for Red Bull, only getting 1 point with Borussia retiring early on. And you can just see how many retirements they were. Loads of different teams managing to pick up some points here. Both McLarens and both Mercedes getting in the points. The only two teams, I think, actually to have both their cars in the points, as Dynastics did go quicker. Will YBR be able to snatch the fastest lap on the final corner as well to get another point? We'll have to wait and see for the standings. But in the end, it was Josh who took his second victory of the season. He will be absolutely delighted with that. See there on the podium, he'll be happy. Ferhan finishing in second position, and Desso getting a podium on his debut. But I'm sure there will be plenty to talk about in the interviews after the race and with the stewards as well. Plenty of incidents at that Belgian Grand Prix, but Josh kept it nice and clean. He took the victory. Ferhan in second position, Desso third, Westy in fourth, Paulie Orange gaining 7 places to finish in fifth. Thomas, he'll be disappointed with 6 after starting from pole position, and then 7th. Droftas 8th, Alan 9th, Jonathan Cox rounding out the points. Dynastics getting that point for the fastest lap by less than 0.2 of a second. And then the retirements: Pedro, Loney, Praga, Artiero, Lawrence, Hibilu and Borussia. Was definitely a race of attrition here at Belgium. We're going to try and get the top few guys in then for an interview. Hopefully they'll be able to join us, because that was a very exciting race indeed. Well, plenty of action to talk about, plenty of overtaking throughout the pack. And Josh and Ferhan on the podium once again. They're becoming regulars, you must say, on this podium. Josh, podium every race he has been in. Ferhan as well, and Desso as well. So it's a bit easier when it is your first race of the season, of course. So we're just inviting these guys now. Hopefully we'll be able to pick up some of them for podium interviews. After what I'm sure was a race where there will be plenty to talk about. Lots of action throughout the field. Penalties as well affecting the order in the end. It was a fascinating race indeed. What that has done in the championship, I'll just try and quickly work that out. Paulie Orange will still have maintained the lead in the championship, of course, having finished in 5th place in the end. But I think it is now Josh who is his closest top. Right, Paulie Orange is on 129 points at the head of the table. Westy has actually closed up slightly. He is now on 120. Josh on 117. So you can see how close it is. Just a few points separating all of these drivers now. It's going to be very interesting. Droftas, he'll be staying in 5th place, with Borussia not scoring any points either. But it was a very interesting battle indeed. Just hoping that we can get a few of the drivers to join at the moment. I think it was a very exciting race indeed for all these drivers in the end. It was a fascinating battle, obviously. Plenty of action throughout the field. We saw plenty of drivers picking up their first points of the season. We saw Dynastics getting his first point with the fastest lap. Desso getting a first podium. Josh with a second win. The first time Thomas has finished the race and not won it. So maybe next week he'll try qualifying from further back. We'll have to wait and see. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get anyone in for the interviews. But it was a fantastic race indeed. It was brilliant to commentate on. Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Next week, it will be coming from the Monza circuit. It'll be the Italian Grand Prix, round 14 of this championship, which is getting ever more exciting. We'll also have F2 action as well on the Tuesday, coming from Monza as well. So it's for me. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully George will be back next week. Thank you also to our sponsors, MIXT Energy and Player One Coffee. Remember, use the code FOR2020 on MIXT Energy to get 10% off. There's also a link in the description for a discount for Player One Coffee. But for myself, I will see you guys next time around. I'll see you on Tuesday for F2 around Monza, and then the main event on Saturday, where will we see Josh get ever closer to the top of the standings. Paulie Orange, he's hanging on to that lead for now. About how long can he stay at the head with 8 races to go. Good night.